Welcome back to the Neighbors Podcast. This is our final episode of season 1. I literally cannot believe we have done our whole first season, and that I did most of it 9 months pregnant. I will say, if you're thinking about launching a podcast, doing it at 9 months pregnant is definitely aggressive, but it's been such a blessing, and the encouragement that we've received and how you all just continue to support it means so much. So thank you so much for being here for the first season. We are not done. We have season 2 in the works that will be coming out in January. So we're just going to take a break between, the Thanksgiving time and Christmas, but we'll have some fun things coming out between that time. But I just can't thank you enough for how you've supported it. Please continue to share it with your friends and just invite people into these conversations that have been so encouraging to me and hopefully encouraging to you. So we're closing it off with a bang today. Today we have Lindsey Sweat, also known as Trella. She is a worship leader and an artist, and she is an incredible songwriter. That's really like the bulk of what she does is songwriting and really her gifting. She's been writing since she was in middle school and now writes for people like Maverick City and Carrie Job and Jesus Culture. She really is all over the Christian map with who she's writing with. And she even writes for some TV shows you might recognize that we talk about, like Love is Blind, my personal favorite, Selling Sunset, Love Island, which is just hilarious. We talk about sometimes when you're doubting your faith, what do you do, and how she's worked through some seasons of doubt. It is such a fun conversation. She's just such a fun human. So here is my conversation with Lindsey Sweat. Welcome to the Neighbors Podcast. We have Lindsey Sweat, a.k.a. Trella. We'll talk about that more, but I'm so glad that you're here. We go pretty far back.
We do.
Well, before I even say that, I want to say this is the final episode of season 1 of Neighbors.
Wow.
So you
did it.
You're the finale.
One.
I know,
a whole season. That's big.
I feel pretty good about that.
That's exciting.
And I did most of it 9 months pregnant, which was incredibly aggressive.
Yeah.
And now this is the first and only episode of the season that we're shooting post-baby. And baby is actually over sitting in the corner with our dear friend,
he's so cute,
mutual friend Abby Elder, who is the world's best aunt and babysitter.
Absolutely.
So if anyone hears, a little baby crying in the background, we're just going to ignore it. But right now she's soundly sleeping, so we hope she stays like that. But I'm so glad that you're here. Like I said, we go way back. We met circa 2012, maybe?
Maybe earlier, because I graduated in 2012. Were we in high school?
Oh, you're right.
I think
college.
because we went to Jamaica together,
I graduated
in
2011 from high school. So we met 2009.
I think we met in 2009. That feels
we met in Jamaica on a mission trip through Beach Church, serving the people of Jamaica. And you were always just like this magnetic person. Like everyone's just drawn to you, like any room you walk in. And it makes so much sense where your life has gone, which we're going to get into where your life has gone from there, because that's just like who you are. You're just this shining light in the world. And so I'm so honored that you're here.
Thank you.
And so before we get into what you're doing now, tell us where you came from, how you grew up, because I think it's interesting and I want everyone to know about it.
Yeah. So I was born in Vero Beach, Florida. and then Tampa, and then Jacksonville. So basically, I was raised mostly in Jacksonville. The Sweat family. My dad's a pastor. Mom is like everything. She's a musician. She's a vocalist, piano teacher. Was always kind of in the background, like, basically secretly controlling everything going on in worship at the church. I have a brother named Ryan, a sister named Ashley. And just grew up in church, leading worship. I fell in love with music via, honestly, just worship music and kind of like singing my prayers, and ended up, just falling in love with leading worship, led worship from like 6th grade through 12th grade until I graduated. I don't know how long you want me to go.
I mean, you're doing great.
Okay. I'm just giving like the general overview.
You started writing music when you were in high school.
Yeah, technically middle school.
Okay, middle school.
But I mean, if you want to talk like professionally writing.
Which your first,
quote unquote, whatever that means.
Professional song, Rooftops?
Yes, that was like the first.
To Rooftops was an incredible worship song that ended up getting picked up by Jesus culture, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you were like 15 or something, which is insane. You just wrote this casual song.
That was crazy.
About shouting his name from the rooftops.
Yeah.
Crazy. And we still sing it today. I mean, so if you haven't heard that song, Rooftops, Jesus Culture Throwback, it's amazing. And Lindsey wrote that song.
TBT.
Okay, so you grew up in Jacksonville. You're a pastor's kid. Mm-hmm. Did you ever have like the stereotypical stray away, come back pastor kid? You know that stereotype that's like they rebel?
You know, I guess I could say yes, but not really, honestly. I'm too much of like a safe person to have had a true rebellious phase. Like I never went through the whole like, yeah, I'm gonna do a bunch of drugs. I'm gonna like be crazy. I'm like, yeah, I didn't really have like the stereotypical rebellious phase. I definitely have been in and out of phases in my 20s, if I'm being totally real, where, you know, my faith is a little shaken, or I'm kind of like, you know, not necessarily like I'm not a Christian anymore, but definitely like, oh, what this looks different than it did as a kid, and figuring out like, you know, the whole classic like deconstruction, reconstruction, that whole thing.
And I feel
I've
like
been
there's
through a
always
couple of phases of that.
A transition of like making your faith your own in your 20s. Like, okay, what does my faith look like as an adult?
Yeah.
So how have you kind of worked through those? Because there are a lot of people, I mean, the world does not want us to follow Jesus and do life God's way.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people in their 20s who battle that temptation and really want to walk that line. So how did you work through that? Like, what are some things you could say to someone that would help them work through that?
That's a tough question. I think for me, it's always been, my biggest thing is like making sure that I'm taking time every day to set aside and to like really just be with God. And even in times where I'm like, I don't even know if God's there, just like journaling or just sitting in silence and kind of like waiting through that period rather than being reactive. I think that's been big to me. I think for me, just like mentors and just making sure that I have people around me that I'm being like completely transparent and honest with has been really big. I think so often people just like kind of have like behavior modification, and then there's so much going on in their heart and in their mind. And I think it's so easy to just so quickly live a double life. And then all of a sudden you're just kind of like, who am I? What am I doing? And then you just are like, I'm going to run away from this like completely because I'm lying, because I'm lying to everybody about who I really am. And it's like, well, if you could just be honest about, you know, your craziest, most like wild thoughts with even just one person, they'd feel a lot less crazy. And they do feel less crazy. Like, I think when you say things out loud to people that you're feeling or thinking, especially when you're doubting, I've like pretty much always had people be like, yeah, I think that all the time too.
And you're like, oh,
that thought just like happens. Like, that's just being human.
Yeah.
And I think that we have this very like, I don't know if it's black and white or linear, like view of like, well, if you're a Christian, this is how you're going to feel all the time, and this is what it's going to be. And then if you have like really strong faith, and if you don't have that, then that means you're like straying away, and that means you're like, you know, and then there's like the like, you get like that hell anxiety that people call it. It's just anyways, I could go down that rabbit hole, but I think the biggest thing is having people around you, like really great community, being completely honest with how you're feeling, what you're thinking, even your craziest thoughts. And then always, every single day, just taking at least 10 minutes to just like be quiet, you know, pray, or even if you don't know how to pray, just journaling, listening to a worship song, whatever, like just taking that time.
Lindsey, this is why I love you.
I don't know if that makes
because
sense.
You're so, to use the word that you love, raw.
I love that word.
Right before we recorded,
I was like,
said
I
the
hate
word
that
raw.
word.
Lindsey hates that word because it makes her think of meat, like ribeyes.
Yeah. I'm just thinking to myself, like, marinating. I'm just like, this is disgusting. It's like squishy.
So don't ever use the word raw around Lindsey.
It's fine.
But
okay.
That's so good. People don't say that a lot. People aren't open a lot that we're all having crazy thoughts sometimes. And it is so true. You say it out loud. I mean, it's the classic, like you bring something into the light, it loses power. But when it's in darkness, the enemy tries to convince you that it's the world is ending. And then, you say it out loud as a trusted someone, which is very important, someone who is very biblically grounded. And then they affirm that's okay that you're thinking that. Like, it's not the end of the world. Let's work through it and move forward. But that's great. All right. So let's talk about your songwriting journey. So you started writing songs, in middle school. What does that even look like? Is it like in your pink diary, like, Jesus,
honestly,
I love you?
It was like, it was a lot of like journaling and just writing things down, picking up my guitar. I knew like maybe 2 or 3, maybe 4 chords at the time. And you're just like, ring, ding, 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 and it's like terrible. And then you're just singing melodies over it. And you're like, this is such a good song. I am a genius. I'm incredible. Because you think like everything you do at that age is like the best thing that anyone's ever done. Which I feel like that's like such a common theme. When you're young, you think you know everything, and then the older that you get, the more you're like, I will never know anything. I don't know anything.
Knew nothing.
Yeah, and I absolutely knew nothing. And even to this day, if I meet someone who like kind of acts like they're like the best thing since sliced bread, I'm like, oh,
you just wait.
You just wait.
Okay, do you have any songs that you remember from middle school? Like any lines or lyrics that you think about now that are just hilarious and like cringy?
Gosh, I wish I could remember.
Please,
I used to sit on my bed with Maria Berlin now, or Maria Dunlap at the time. But I used to sit on my bed with her, and we would, because she lived with us for a time, and we would just sit and like write songs. And I bet if I texted her, she would remember some of them. Because I was like, I think I was like in 5th grade at that point, actually. And I don't remember, but I do remember one song that I wrote maybe in middle school called Captivating Beauty of the Heart. It's hiding underneath those scars is the captivating beauty of the heart.
That's actually beautiful.
It is beautiful, but it was like really cheesy. It was really, it was like hiding underneath the scars is the captivating beauty. It was like that.
Oh my God.
It was just so bad. It reminded me of like Phoebe and Friends singing at the coffee shop.
Yes.
Like just
smelly cat,
smelly cat. Yeah.
Well, I'll give you like a higher grade than Phoebe, because those are actually really beautiful lyrics.
Oh, thank you. I still like the message, but yeah.
Beautiful message.
Yeah.
Kind of like a long title, but that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then how did writing music develop as you grew older?
So honestly, I just kept doing it. And I look back and I don't really remember why I kept doing it. Maybe I was like, I really don't remember my intentions when I was that age. I think I was just doing it because it was something that I loved to do. And like, I think it was just like, yeah. And honestly, I've always been I'm very like, I'm a feeler. Okay. Like, I don't know if I'm like, I think people are saying now like a highly sensitive person, but it's so funny because when I hear that, I think like, I'm like, I was never like a big like crier. Even to this day, like I'll cry maybe like once a year. Like I'll have like a big cry once a year. Okay. And like once or twice a year. Like I cry. Year? I think I did. I think I had it in the winter, actually. I think it was like February. But maybe I'll have 2 this year. That'll be exciting.
Because that one was a little early in the year.
I'm trying to have more cries because I feel like that means like you're healthier if you're like expressing yourself. Maybe. I don't know. Anyways, I've never been a big crier. So that being said, I'm still very like emotional. And I think that singing and writing has always been like my way of expressing my big feelings.
Very interesting.
Whereas like other people will like just cry at the drop of the hat or whatever their thing is to express, or they'll get angry or whatever. For me, my big like it's always been like singing. I just like I just love like singing really loud. Like I think it's so therapeutic, like just belting a song when I'm like really mad or really sad or really frustrated or disappointed. I think that's always like been my way of like expressing that. So I think like that's looking back, actually, I'm like, I don't know why. Maybe that's why. So I think just that was really the biggest thing. And my relationship with God, figuring out, because I've always been a big feeler and I've always been very, very like in my head in a lot of ways too, just like very critical, very kind of academic, I would say, about a lot of things, trying to understand life. So I think the mixture of those two things, either like big feelings or like I would write to like talk through like these questions I'm having about the world and about God, and like, if this, then why this, or like, just like kind of a lot of things I was thinking through. And then prayer, it was like a lot of prayer. I would write so many prayers and then sing them. That's how Rooftops, I think, came to be, like just through writing down prayers. But yeah, I think so. That's kind of how it progressed. And then, when I was 15, the Rooftops thing happened. And then, and that was a song that I wrote in my room. It was in the middle of the night. Just like, I think I couldn't sleep that night. I remember it was like maybe 2 or 3 a.m. And so then from there, my friend Jonathan Berlin, who you might know him, he like really helped like mentor me and bring me along, and like pulled me into the studio. He used to have a studio here in Jacksonville, and he'd be like, could I have you come sing on this? Or like, can I have you come help me? I remember one time I sang on something and I was like, this song needs a bridge. And he was like, okay, like write it, let's see. And so I wrote it and we tracked it, and then they ended up using that bridge. And that was something senior year of high school that I ended up having writer's credit on. And then from that, I went to FSU for college. I studied social work. And 2 years in to being in college, which I was still writing in college, and I was in collegiate a cappella, which was very fun.
Very fun. That's like Glee Club, right?
Yeah, basically. Yes. Like, what's that movie? I don't know.
Yes, Pitch Perfect.
Pitch Perfect. It's like that, basically.
Dream.
So I was still doing music and still loving it, but I didn't go to school for it because I've always been like 50% practical, 50% dreamer. So I was like, there's no way I'm going to make a freaking career in music. That's so dumb. Like, I need to have a backup plan, I've always been that way, still in that way. I'm like, okay, well, if it's still, even now, I'm like, if it doesn't work out, I can go get my master's. I can just become a therapist.
You're like
it's going to be fine.
In it right now.
I'm fully in it, but I'm also very aware of how roller coastery the music industry is. Yeah. So still to this day, I'm like, okay, well, if I get to the point where I feel like I can't pay the bills, I'm just going to, go back to school. It's fine. I'll become a therapist. So I have I always have a backup plan. So I was at FSU. And 2 years in, I get a call from this woman, Carrie, at Capital Christian Music in Nashville. And she had heard the song that I wrote the bridge on with Jonathan. And then she had also heard Rooftops. And she was like, this is so crazy. You're so young. And I just saw that you're unsigned. You're not published. And she's like, it's my job to kind of keep an eye out for like young writers who are like doing cool things. And so she was like, we want to fly you out to Nashville on a writing trip. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but that sounds great. I've never been to Nashville. So me and my brother, Ryan, went out together, and he just like ate barbecue while I was writing every day. And I know. He was like, I want to, because I remember my mom felt weird about me going alone for some reason. So my brother was like, I'll go because I love barbecue and I've never been to Nashville. Legit. That was his reasoning, which is so funny. He's still that way. He still will make us eat barbecue everywhere we go.
Did they have that at their wedding, your brother? I think they had barbecue.
Yeah. And I always make the joke, I'm like, I've never liked barbecue, but it's the classic like youngest child. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah, right.
And he is classic oldest child.
Yes.
But anyways, so then after that trip, I fell in love with it. I just remember that was the first time, honestly, in my life, and I've always said this is the first time in my life where I felt like God was clearly saying, this is what you need to do. I had never felt so at peace with a decision.
That's so cool.
So basically I was like, I have to do this. And so I think I finished out the semester at FSU, and then I moved to Nashville. I continued school online. Okay. So it took me a really long time, but I did eventually graduate with my degree from FSU. I have it. I still can't believe I have it, but I do have it. So I moved to Nashville.
Got my backup comment on backup plan.
Yep. We love a backup plan. I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Makes me feel safe. Yes. And that's what that is. And then let's see, I was there for a year. I was there for 8 years, but the first year that I was there, I was a full-time preschool teacher, and then I was writing in the afternoons, and then I was also doing online school. So I was literally a crazy person. Yes. So I was just going all day from literally 6 a.m. until a lot of times 1, 2 a.m. doing homework or whatever. So that was a crazy year. And then I think it was after that year that I signed my first publishing deal with Provident, and the woman, Carrie, is the one that called me when I was at FSU, is the one that signed me.
Wow.
Yeah. So that happened. I was in that deal for 4 years, and really throughout that was just the process of honing in on my craft. I was okay at writing songs. Like, obviously I could do it. I had the gift in me, but I think like after you realize you have a gift, it's just so important to like put in all the hours. What is it? How many hours?
10,000.
10,000 hours. Yeah. So that's kind of what that was. I feel like my whole time in Nashville was like the 10,000 hours of just like, I was showing up every day to sessions. I was just writing all the time, constantly, even just like taking meetings, meeting people who have been doing this way longer than me, and just like kind of learning the ins and outs, the ropes of the music industry, which is ever changing. And, sometimes even month by month. So it's just, it felt like school without going to school. It was just like school by doing.
Yeah. Wait, can we pause and talk about, because, I think a lot of us think about, you mentioned sessions. Like, I think about a songwriting session, and I think you're in this like dimly lit room with incense burning, and you're all just kind of like moving your bodies like this back and forth, and like a lyric comes and you're like, well, but this, and like, so what is, I'm sure that's really accurate. What is a songwriting session? What does that actually look like? Yeah. So,
I mean, it can look like a million different things. It can look like what you just said.
Okay.
Most of the time it doesn't.
Okay.
And I think if I walked into a room like that, I would feel pretty uncomfortable, because I'm actually the type of person who I'm like, okay, like, let's like sit down and like I get my computer out, I start the Google Doc. Okay. I'll walk you through like a classic session.
Okay, thank you.
Like, it's 10 a.m. on a Tuesday,
okay,
and I'm in Nashville, and I'm meeting with two strangers that I don't know. Usually, a lot of the times,
really?
Not usually, but a lot of the times, if you're on a trip and you're writing with new people, like you get set up by publishers or managers with a certain artist maybe that you don't know, and then their producer that you maybe don't know, or a lot of times it'll be a producer that I commonly I work with a lot, with a new artist. So it's always either like one person you don't know, or like sometimes you don't know anyone. Like, I'm going on a trip to Nashville in a couple weeks, and on purpose on this trip, I was like, I want to write with all new people. I just want to mix it up. So that's going to be like that. So you walk in.
So does the artist, are they always, is it like they have a song in mind and then they bring writers in, or is it writers getting together to write something totally new? Or is it all of the above?
It's all of the above. Sometimes an artist comes in and they're like, this is my vision. This is what I want. This is the title. Let's write the song. These are references on a Spotify playlist. Here are 10 songs that I think are the vibe of like sonically what I want.
Okay.
So sometimes an artist will do that, like an artist with like a lot of clear vision. Oftentimes that's not the case.
Okay.
Oftentimes an artist comes in, they don't have ideas. They don't even necessarily know what they want, which is actually very frustrating as a songwriter.
Yeah.
And that's when you kind of have to step up.
You can be more creative when you have direction.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's hard. This is like how I feel about Halloween. Mm-hmm. Halloween, I feel like I cannot be creative because it's too broad. And so I get paralyzed of like, I don't even have a direction to go.
I'm the same way with
Where
dressing
if I have
up.
a theme party, I can be so much more creative because I have parameters. Which is obviously...
That is a metaphor for so many things in life. I love what you just said. That is so good.
Anyway, okay, so...
I love that. We love structure and parameters.
Yes, we do. It's biblical too, honestly.
Right? Yeah, it's so true. But I think I love when an artist has a clear vision. For me, that's so exciting. It's like we can do so many things together, and we can because there's like, this is the thing that you want to say with your album or with the song or whatever. But yeah, so some days it's like that, and then whatever. So that aside, you walk in, usually some people like writing on notes, like on iPhone notes. Some people like doing it on Google Docs. So either or usually. So you'll do a shared doc or a shared note. So as you're writing, like you're typing something, everyone's seeing it. And then the producers usually in the corner, like doing their thing, creating the sounds. And sometimes they'll just start kind of making sounds, and then I will hear something, and then I'm like, oh, I hear this melody. And then I get my phone out, and then I'm like starting to voice memo things. And I'm just like, okay, can you play this chord one more time? Sorry. I hear over this chord, and then you'll start singing and you're like, no, whatever. And then you put it down, and then the other person's like, wait, what if you did this? And then they get their voice memo and they're like, da, 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 da. And so it's kind of like that. And then a lot of times the melodies come first, and then sometimes the words come with the melody, and you're like, I don't know why, but I'm hearing these words, like I want you or something, or this is love or something. And everyone's like, oh yeah, that's cool. But what if you said, I don't know, that is love, or like just switching. Yeah. It's like you have this one idea that's like just like the first thing you thought, and then the other person takes that and they're like, oh, well, when you said that, I actually heard it this way. And you're like, oh, that's even better. And then the person over there is like, wait, what if you took both of those things and then you added this? And so it's just like that. It's just like,
gosh, that is so far.
It's just workshopping
from something I could ever do. I'm like sitting here, like you're just like so casual, like you hear the melody and you just like do the voice memo. I just cannot even, I just don't even know where to start. I mean, it's just so incredible. I mean, I just love that it truly is a gift, even though you can hone in on so many skills. And like you said, it's still important to put in the 10,000 hours. But
absolutely, yeah.
The way you talk about it, it's just, I'm like in awe because it is such a gift. Like God has put that in you, because I could literally never do that.
Yeah. Well, it's so crazy because you have gifts that I couldn't do either. Like I couldn't put together a podcast, you know, like just things like that. It's like, it's so cool to see like what people naturally just want to do and are like magnets too. Yeah. And for me, it's always been music. It's like I don't remember a day where I haven't like needed to, you know, sing or like just had melodies just like literally flying through my brain all the time.
Incredible.
And it's just, it's just crazy where I like just literally given these gifts, and it's like, and it's so beautiful, and it's, you know, either we do something with it or we don't, but either way, it's just as beautiful. That's the thing. Yeah. So.
Okay. So you do the 8 years in Nashville, and then where does it take you?
Yeah. So then circa 2020,
a fun year for all of us.
Fun year for all of us. Yeah. Circa 2020, something had been like brewing about moving in general. I love Nashville, still love Nashville, love going back. I have friends that are like chosen family over there, like that I love and stay with every time. But for me, for some reason, it just didn't feel like the end game. Like it never felt like this is where I want to be for the rest of my life. And I still felt like I had a lot of like kind of moving and traveling in me to do. And I had always wanted to live in New York. And I had been on a ton of trips, and I had been kind of writing and working with some producers there, and had a lot of friends who had recently moved there, like good friends. And so, you know, I was planning on moving in February of 2020, and then the pandemic happened. Yep. So then I moved to Jacksonville for a little bit, and then I moved back to Nashville for a little bit, and then I moved to New York once it was safe enough to like.
So it was a little bit of
so I did a weird jumping, hop, skip, and a jump like everyone I feel like did at that time, and then I moved to New York. So that's and I had been like writing with a church out there, so but honestly in general I just felt like it was, and I was just like, I'm always that, like, I've always felt very like when the Holy Spirit is like, yep, I'm like, yes.
You just know. Because
for me, I'm not very all over the place with my decisions. Like, it's very like, once I'm given the go ahead, I'm going to do it. Which is nice.
That's a great trait to have.
But the worst is when you're just in the gray area and you're like, I don't know anything.
Please.
I don't know anything. I don't know yes, I don't know no, I don't know maybe, I don't know anything. I'm just sitting here. So true. And that's the worst. But yeah, I feel like when it is a yes, it's like it's always been pretty clear. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to New York. So I went to New York, and I was there for 2.5 years and made a ton of music with I loved the food, the people, the diversity and culture, and the music. And there's just so many incredible like players and musicians there. You just like living there. I was like, I'm just like, you're like not in like a self-deprecating way, but you're just like, I'm just not that good in a lot of ways.
There's
just a lot of people who are just so crazy, and they're just out there gigging every night, and they're incredible. They're in these like little New York, you know, jazz bars and like little like basement, like rock shows. It's just like so, it was such an incredible experience. I loved living there. I loved the people I met. Like I met some of my best friends now there, and it's in such a short period of time. It was weird. I was like, just met people that I, clicked with. So I loved it. And my favorite thing about New York was the dinner parties. There's just like such a culture of dinner parties. I do throw a lot of dinner parties. I love dinner parties. I love a cheese board. I love red wine. I love like a pasta. I love a dinner party. Love that. It's a good time.
Okay, so now where are you going? Because you said you lived there for 2.5 years.
Yes.
And now what?
So long story short, I loved living in New York, but the songwriting music industry was not very strong there. There was a very small crew. There are people there working. There are producers. There are artists. There are people there working, but it's not as strong as it is in like a Nashville or an LA. Okay. So basically, at the end of like 2.5 years, I was kind of like itching to work more. I was like, I just want to be writing more. I want to be collaborating more. I want to be just like, I love it. So I'm just like, I want to be doing it more. And when I'm not doing it like every day, I just feel like there's a part of me missing. So basically I was like, okay, so I could either move back to Nashville or I could try LA. And so I went on a couple trips to LA, and I just felt like, once again, that feeling of like, I'm going to do that. So I'm moving to LA. Yeah.
So exciting.
In January. Yeah.
So exciting. And I know you're not here to name drop, but you've written with some incredible people or for some incredible artists. Can you just talk about a couple of the people or groups that you've written with that people may know and what that experience has been like?
Yeah. Let's see. I don't know. I'm like, okay. Obviously Jesus Culture. So after that happened, I ended up writing on like probably 3 or 4 more of their records, which is exciting. Specifically Kim Walker-Smith, and like Chris Keela, Chris McCartney, those people. I've written a bit with like Carrie Job, like a lot of the Bethel people. I'm trying to think. Like I know, let's see. Who else have I written with? I don't know. I'm like, I have like on my website, like all of the people, and I'm like, I can't think of any right now. You
can't even think of Maverick City, right?
Maverick City music. Yeah. A lot with
weren't you in the background of one of their music videos?
Maybe.
I was at the
Spotify,
recording,
like the first recording they did.
And I was like, wait, that looks like Lindsey. I actually think we texted with your brother about it, and we were like, is this Lindsey in the video? And he's like, yeah, she wrote with them. We're like, that's incredible. Yeah. Just from like, I just could see you there in the background.
They're great.
Worshiping.
Yeah. I've been writing with them a ton, especially recently, and with Chandler for his new record. And then, I don't know, like, I feel like I've gone in and out of like different camps. When I say camps, that's like, in music industry, it's like a camp would be like Maverick City is a camp. Elevation's a camp. Vertical, because it's like all the people that are in that camp. I don't know why people call it that. But anyways, I did a lot with like Vertical Worship, Red Rock.
Okay, so like you've been with pretty much every camp.
Yeah, like a lot of the worship camps, yeah.
Incredible.
And then, and then recently I've just gotten more into like pop music and sync music, which is like film and TV. So now I wrote for Monster High, the musical on Nickelodeon, which was super fun.
Very fun.
I wrote the first one, then I wrote a couple songs for the first one, and then a couple for the sequel that just came out, which was fun. And then like a lot of Netflix TV shows like Love Island and like Love is Blind, Selling Sunset, Selling OC, like reality TV kind of stuff. Blind. Yeah, just like really cheesy kind of commercial songs.
Love is Blind
it's so
is
fun
my
for me.
guilty pleasure TV show.
Yeah.
It is so terrible, and I cannot look away.
Yeah, it's
Do you
fun.
watch it?
I never have, no.
You never have. And
it's so funny because a lot of my songs have landed on reality shows, but I can't say that I've seen any of them.
That's hilarious.
Because I'm not a reality TV girl.
I know, I honestly can't picture
I don't
you
judge
writing for those shows at all. I mean, that's so amazing. And
it's
actually,
fun, though. It's because I have like a sass, like a fire in me. And they love that. Like, they love that kind of stuff. And I love to be like, you'll never have me, and I'm going to walk away.
Okay,
It's
so
like songs
now
like
it makes
that.
so much sense because sometimes I'm like, where do they get these songs that fit so perfectly with what's happening? But people are actually writing.
Yeah.
Specifically
I mean,
for
we're
those
not
songs.
writing specifically for that show, or at least
But, like,
I'm not.
about that.
But like in general, you go into like a songwriting session for like a TV show or a movie, and you're just kind of like, they're like, yeah, they want you to talk about like fire, and like they want you to talk about like desire, and you're just kind of like, okay.
So
And you're
different
like,
from the like Christian
Oh, yeah.
songwriting sessions, I'm sure.
I'm just like I'm hopping around, you know. But it's
love
fun because
that.
it keeps you like dynamic and diverse, and
Absolutely.
like so I love it. But yeah, and lots of TV shows. I was just on Virgin River. One of my
Very
artist
wholesome.
songs was just on Virgin River. Yeah, so just a lot of that kind of stuff. And then a lot of like indie pop artists, like a lot of more like alternative, like less like mainstream pop artists. I love working with those types of artists. But yeah.
And then you are an artist yourself. So your artist name, Trella, which I just love. When you first announced that, I'm like, this is so perfect for her. Where did Trella come from? And how did you decide when you were into songwriting, leading worship, all these things, where did like this artist side of Trella come from?
Yeah. So I actually started the Trella project because I was super burnt out, honestly, from like CCM and worship music. I think I had gotten to the point where I was like doing it every single day, and it just wasn't as like, it didn't feel as like authentic anymore because it was every single day you're having to like pump out these songs that are like, what is the Holy Spirit telling me? And like, you're being so like, you're just constantly having to hone into this thing. And I was just kind of exhausted. And then a lot of times the songs that I loved most, like, weren't even really getting the light of day. And then the ones that were getting the light of day were like, I don't know, CCM radio, at least at the time, maybe not now, but at the time it was very like, this is one very specific thing that is wanted to do something more creative. So I created my Trella project because I love pop music. I've always loved pop music. Even if you ask my parents, like I was always obsessed with like Christina Aguilera, Britney Spears, Justin Timberlake, the Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Hannah Montana, the Jonas Brothers. Like I've always loved just like, honestly, just like top 40 pop earwormy songs. I've always loved it.
Which is not cool anymore, but
I know,
I feel the
but
exact same way. I think it's very
I've always
cool.
thought it's cool. I'm just like, this
I
music
totally
is
agree.
it. This is it.
You can't help but like get into it, and people are lying if they say it's not compelling music.
No, because everyone at a wedding, if that song comes on, everyone's on the dance floor. And I'm
down.
like, that's the number one teller of like a good song.
Yes.
Like everyone can get down to it.
And just because
I love
everyone
it.
can get down to it doesn't make it not cool.
No, I agree.
I
So
totally
yeah,
agree. Anyway.
I was like, I want to do pop music, and I've always loved like Taylor Swift and like, writers who are just bearing their souls, especially about like boys and relationships. Like, as I'm going through my 20s and dating, different people and kind of learning, the hard way. I just have always loved like writing songs about that. So.
Okay, does Trella mean anything, or like how did you come up with that name?
So I literally it does not mean anything.
Okay.
I sat down because I knew if it meant something, that like 2 years later I would think it's so dumb, because I literally have seen interviews of other bands who like created this name and they're like, yeah, this is so cool and this is exactly what it means and da-da. And then later on they're like, that's so dumb. I've heard that in an interview. I wanted it to be random.
Yes.
So I literally just like wrote down all my favorite like letters and sounds and all that kind of in my journal. And I wanted it to sound like sonically like what my music sounds like. And for some reason, when I put those letters and I don't think it's a real word. I don't think it means anything. Let me see if anybody else has that name. And they didn't, at least at the time. And so, yeah.
I
just was like, that's it.
Okay, so Trella has some new stuff coming. You just released a single, Emotional Ghosting, and we have Taxi Driver coming out.
Yes. I also dropped a Christmas song yesterday, LOL.
Ooh, yeah. And I love your Christmas songs.
Yeah.
I can't wait to listen to
it's like
it.
a Christmas song, quote unquote, but it's more just like a song about like the winter. Yeah.
And so what else do you have cooking in Trella world?
So I have like a project. I say a project because I don't know if it's going to be an EP or an album. I'm still deciding on exactly. It always comes down to the very end of like what songs make it. But a project of songs coming out in March that I'm really excited about. They're like my favorite songs I've ever written.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm really excited. Yeah.
I love your music. And if you're listening and you haven't listened to Trella, go look her up on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere you find music, because it's incredible.
Thanks.
What is
Yeah, so I am a writer on all of my stuff. I do collaborate with producers. Usually it's just me and a producer who are technically the writers on it. Though I will say, like, a lot of songs, especially recently, there have been songs that have come out of sessions with like me and a producer and like 2 other writers, which is so fun. Or like with, a friend that I like invited in. I love inviting friends in on stuff that I write for myself because it's like they know what I've been going through. They've been talking me through it. We've been like sharing so much about it. And then I'm like, okay, this is the concept. Like, help me, because you probably remember things that I don't remember because you're seeing this circumstance from your end. So it's kind of fun to do that too.
Have you ever gotten, like, if you've written a breakup song, has the guy ever like known it's about him? Do you think?
I don't.
Or have they ever like reached out and been like, I know
There's been guys
about me?
who have. There's been guys who think songs are about them that are not about them. That's happened. And then
embarrassing
also,
for them.
No, but honestly, I think that there's one person that probably knows a lot of the earlier songs about them, and that's because they are. But other than that, all of the recent ones, honestly, no, I don't think it. I think like, especially the recent ones are kind of all like about a lot of things.
Right.
Like, it's rare that I write a song, I'm like, this is about this one person.
Like you're naming his name.
No, it's just like, this is the feeling that I have right now. And I can pull from like 3 or 4 different experiences with different people of like this same feeling that is a theme. And I'm working through it in order to grow for my next relationship,
Very true.
So.
All right. So I'm sure someone listening can think, wow, Lindsey has had the coolest, most incredible life with no hard things. But to every light, there are shadows. And so what are some of the hard things, some of the shadows that you've experienced just in your life and specifically like in your 20s? What are some of the things that you've had to work through that are maybe not the so glamorous side of what it is that you do?
Yeah. So I've definitely had my go with, anxiety and depression, probably starting at honestly like 1920. I started dealing with a lot of anxiety and just kind of like didn't know what it was at first, because I feel like at that point people were kind of talking about it, but not now. Like now on TikTok, everyone's like, if you have anxiety, these are the 5 things you can do to cope. It's like, it wasn't that. We didn't have TikTok.
Right.
Like we had like, barely people were starting to talk about it.
Right.
And so I think at the time I was just like, what is this? Why do I feel like this? I thought I was crazy, the whole thing.
Yep.
And so, I went through a lot of that. And because I ignored a lot of it, it actually eventually would kind of turn into depression, because my body would kind of just give up from being so panicked all the time. And so, I struggled a lot with that. Thankfully, I got in with like an incredible therapist in Nashville that one of my close friends recommended me to her. And I ended up going to her for like, I want to say like 7 years on and off.
Wow.
And then, it's like, it's not linear. It's up and down. Some days, some weeks, some months, I'm amazing. And then sometimes, you just have a bad one. And it's like, I think that I've just learned a lot through therapy. I've learned a lot through, just like my community of people, and just honestly, like I was saying at the beginning of this podcast, like sitting in silence and prayer and just like allowing myself to be. And I think, and then I had kind of my journey with like medication, which I'm super open about. And I think, because everyone's figuring it out. Everyone has their own thing. So I think like you have to figure out, what's best for you. But so I kind of have gone in and out of just struggling with my mental health and my specifically like over the past 10 years. Yeah.
What would you tell someone who maybe hasn't done the work yet, or maybe doesn't even who's struggling with that?
Well, number one, you're not crazy. Pretty much everyone is dealing with it. Like,
on some level.
Not to like, I think, and when I say that, I'm not trying to downplay or like make what you're feeling not as, important, because, but I think like it's just so freeing to know like so many people, everyone is, especially right now, because I just think like cell phones and social media has like truly destroyed our brains in so many ways. And I just think like so many people are going through it. So I think number one, that's that. Number two, there's so many resources, so much out there, so much research behind like what's happening. And I think education is amazing. There's so many podcasts to just understand like, oh, I'm feeling this way. Oh, this person is saying this is exactly why I'm feeling this way, because this thing is happening in my brain. It's like God gave us, these incredible people who spent their lives researching this for a reason. Right. So I think there's so much out there. And the number one thing is, you're not crazy. You're normal. You're like a human being who's living in a really broken world full of like a lot, and it's all in our faces all of the time. Yes. And like, 50 years ago, they couldn't see everything that's going on in the world that's really hard and dark, and all the sick people and all of, you couldn't see that. Now you can see everything before you get out of bed. Yeah. So it's just like, no wonder. Right. And it's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
Do you put boundaries around social media to try and like guard yourself from that at all?
I try to.
Yeah. Don't we all?
I know all the things I could do. Yeah. But I think I have like months and days that are good and months and days that are bad with that. Like, I went through this whole phase where I like bought an alarm clock, and I would turn my phone off and put it in a drawer, and I would set my alarm clock, and I wouldn't look at my phone the hour before bed or the hour after I woke up, and I was like really strict on myself, and that was really awesome, but it wasn't very realistic. Like just for like everyday life. Yeah. So, yeah. I try.
Yeah. I try. Yeah, I feel that. Mm-hmm. Okay. So final question. What are you loving right now? I mean, you talked about dinner parties. We know you're loving a good dinner party, good meat and cheese board.
I love a charcuterie board, love a dinner party. I love a long walk. I know that sounds so
I love a long walk.
But I'm just a walker. I'm a walker. I love walking.
Do you walk on the beach here?
I walk on the beach. I'll just like walk for miles. I love walking.
We should want to walk together.
I would love that. My favorite thing to do is walk with a friend.
Yes.
There's like, too. Yeah, I could go on and on about that, but I'm not going to. And then murder mystery books.
Oh, books. Murder mystery books. Okay. What is like your...
I love a murder mystery.
Can you give us an example of like your favorite murder mystery?
I just read, well, I don't really know if I have a favorite, if I'm being honest, but I just read The Paris Apartment. That was really good. And The Guest List. Those are both by Lucy Foley.
Fantastic.
So good.
Yes.
Right now I'm reading The Perfect Couple. I've read pretty much all of Harlan Coben books, which my dad got me into. He's a great murder mystery writer. I just love it. I love a mystery.
Love a mystery. Lindsey /Trella.
Yes.
I love you. And I'm so glad that you came on and shared so much of your heart for who you are and writing music. And thanks for sharing your gift with the world.
Thank you.
And talking about it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
This is so fun.
Neighbors is produced by Lager Creative and Taylor Minning. Music by Austin and Lindsay Adamak. Artwork by Wesley Parsons. And motion graphics by Robbie Burns.
Living to love life. I'm living to love life. Show me brighter days, new mercies every morning. You never shy away to tell me that you're for me. How could I repay this? Whatever can I do but offer up this life like there's nothing left to lose? I'm living to love life. I'm